Yes, and to welcome us in the third webinar, I will ask Sonja Mitter from Salto, Southeast Europe Resource Center, as a host and a coordinator of the Academy, to say a couple of welcoming words this morning.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. I must apologize right away because my internet connection is very bad. I'm at a hotel at the moment, far away from home. So if I get thrown out, excuse me. Lemonas will get me back in very quickly, I'm sure. Yes, so I'm Sonja, and I'm here with a different hat, actually. That was nicely introduced me as coordinator of Salto Southeast Europe, but actually I'm here to coordinate the European Academy on Youth Work, which I'm not doing as a representative of Salto Southeast Europe, which is not so much of a big deal, but the Academy is a cooperation project, a long-term cooperation project between 12 national agencies and also Salto, generally speaking, the different Salto youth centers. And it's a long-term project about innovation in youth work. We are still in the process, I think, of establishing, developing further a platform, basically a platform for the community, the youth work community of practice. So all the different stakeholders, the youth workers, but also people coming more from policy or research and education and so on, that all work with youth work to engage, I think, in dialogue, in reflection, and hopefully, possibly also then later on in action, eventually about what it takes to drive youth work forward, to be innovative, what that means, what we mean by innovation in youth work, and how the field, we in our different positions that we're working in, different tasks, can react or even maybe proact, I don't know, to ongoing developments, trends, challenges, needs of society, in particular those obviously of the young people that we're working with. As Darko has already mentioned, we're slowly getting closer to the next bigger residential event, which we're now really hoping to and planning to organize in June in Slovenia. But as the pandemic has come, we have also thought that we will use this time for this series of webinars that we're now in the middle of them, in the third one of them, where we really, because this pandemic is really a time, kind of a trigger almost, that makes us think about and forces us to deal with disruption and change, and therefore also this need to think about, needs to possibly to innovate to some extent and change our ways of working. So we're looking in these webinars, we're looking a little bit outside. What are the trends? What are the developments influencing us? What is happening around us that we need to react to? But also inside to us as how we personally and of course professionally mainly, how are we dealing with this situation? So in one of the former webinars, we asked ourselves, can we at all choose not to innovate? Is this an option at all for us? We also looked at what are the requirements for learning in these times when we're looking towards a future that we cannot really know at this stage at sea, and yet need to get prepared for. We will also look today more at what do we actually mean by being an innovator? What is that? What can that be? And what different kinds of innovators might there be? So we're looking at different questions. Obviously, these webinars are very short moments, so we can only get a glimpse of what we, dive a little bit into the questions, open them, and then hopefully inspire a bit of thinking and reflection that we can come back to at different moments later through inputs and also moments of discussion. And with that, I hand back to Darko. A warm welcome again to everybody from my side. Very happy to see you here today. And I'm looking forward to well, 2 inspiring hours of discussion, exchange, listening, hearing, speaking. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Sonia, for the welcoming words. Apart from Sonia, in the team behind the webinar and the Academy preparation, we have also Susanna, also from Salto, Southeast Europe. She waved softly. There is also Limones, who is doing digital support, digital facilitation. We have Domagoj, who is doing a lot of communication, social media, PR. We have also Boško, who is also here under the name of Susanna, but he is actually Boško. He will do the report of the big event. We have also Anita and myself doing facilitation. And then last not least, if I'm not forgetting anybody, Mireia van Bremen. She is our graphic recorder, and she did 2 wonderful posters from the first 2 webinars. One of them you can see behind her. But I'm sure Anita will tell us a little bit more about what we did the last 2 times.
Indeed, indeed. So good morning, everyone. It's great to see familiar faces and names, and equally the new people joining. You're very welcome to these series of webinars. I just wanted to go through a little bit on what we did before, very shortly, just to kind of brief you on what happened, or remind you if you were there. Limones will share a little bit here our Miro board and the posters that Mireille has done about our previous webinars. Here they are. They look fabulous. And the first webinar we talked about, we started from the beginning. Where are we? And we talked about the current moments, the difficulties of the pandemic, of course, but also the rise of new technology and all the changes that are happening in our world. And with that, we looked at innovation. Okay, how innovation can bring some answers to these issues, not all, obviously. And we talked about innovation in youth work as this kind of tree that Mireille represented here in her drawing. And we talked about that in youth work specifically, also based on the research by the Academy, innovation is contextual. It means it always depends on your circumstances. Something that is innovative in one place might not be on another place, and that's how innovation works. It should have a positive impact on young people. It should be value-based, and it all obviously will need an ecosystem that fosters it. And then we looked kind of further from this, and we started looking at our own feelings. Where were we in this change? So some people were kind of still confused or in denial about the whole thing, but most of us were kind of moving forward. We're starting to accept change and to move forward in the process of adapting to what is the new reality. And then a lot of questions came up, what is magical that we do in face-to-face events when we do youth work that we can bring to technology? How can we create value in a positive way, in a responsible way? And we also mentioned in this workshop, curiously, about what competences do we need actually as youth workers or youth work supporters in order to innovate. Long story short, we moved to our second webinar. And in our second webinar, we had the privilege to have a guest who was telling us more about innovation trends, not only innovation trends, but trends that lead to innovation, I can correct. And so Peter Mary helped us really look at the world and how change happens. And there's patterns in that. And there has been studies around it that there's always these periods of, let's say, less turmoil. And then there's something that brings chaos, brings change, and that forces us to adapt, pushes and drives innovation. And then we go to another more harmonious state before this new waves comes. And the thing is that this process is getting faster and faster and faster. So again, we talked about core competences. We need to face this and the challenges we all feel in this kind of fast-paced, changing world. And we talked about a lot of things about different multiple intelligences. We talked about how we can combine our cognitive, analytical side with more intuitive side. How can we engage others, etc., etc. So these are the wonderful images from Mireille that I can't thank enough because it really captures a bit the groove of these webinars, the idea that we are talking about these things in a lighter way, but also trying to reach some depth, which takes us to today. So today we want to look at this aspect of innovation, which is you, us. Now, how do we individually contribute or not to innovation? And so for starting that reflection, I would like to invite you to write something on the chat, okay? Ready? So the question is, when you think of an innovator, who comes to your mind first and why? Needless to say, there's no right or wrong question. It's whoever comes to your mind. Might be somebody very famous, might be your grandma. It's all good. So when you think of an innovator, of somebody who brings novelty, who came up with a new idea and implemented it, who comes to your mind and why? All right, let's just, Elon Musk, Nikola Tesla, Atatürk, B, Einstein, the queen of robots, Simon Gibbs, Karl Marx, teachers, me, very good. Gandhi, artists in general, Marie Curie, Steve Jobs, Phillips, don't remember his first name, if it's the Phillips I'm thinking of. The guy who invented the wheel, his name didn't went on the books, did it? Zuckerberg, me, Hitler. All right. Very interesting, very interesting, very interesting. And now a second question, all right? The internet inventor. Okay, and people are already even sharing references, which is great. Thank you, Ada. But there's a second question coming. Maybe taking this person as inspiration or not, up to you. What is the main characteristic for you of an innovative person? What would be the main characteristic of an innovative person? I know what you're thinking, there's many, okay, but choose one, try to choose one. Being bold, courageous, creativity, creator, reflective, open-minded, inter or transdisciplinary, moving forward, creative, passion, social, optimistic, action, spiritual, courage, out of the box. Again, this kind of creativity, leader, open-minded, divergent, having solutions, positive, open-minded, imaginative. Wow, you're getting speed here. Everything is getting very fast. Good, good, good. Type away. Decision-making, sociable, creativity, creative. Great, great. You can keep on adding stuff there. Ethical, very important too. So this is what we're going to talk today. We're going to start slowly going into this. And the invitation is for you to also reflect on yourself, on how are you of an innovator? How does that happen within you? What is your impact, your personal impact in the teams, in the organizations, in the communities that you're part of when it comes to innovation? All right. So I'm going to move to to Darko, and Darko will follow through on this.
Thanks. Just to deepen this, we may a little exercise that normally if we would be standing together in a big room, we would say, okay, on one side of the room you have agree wall, on the other side of the room you have disagree wall. Probably you've done exercises like that in your life or in your youth work or youth training many times. So we thought to use this exercise to deepen a little bit this exploration about who is an innovator and what kind of innovator I am, what kind of competence I need to innovate. So to deepen that, we made the same exercise on the mirror board. I think Lamanas will share it. So you can open the mirror board in the link that is in your chat. So please open it. because we need you to be there on the board so you can participate in the room. And my invitation there would be for you not just to move the post-its. I think Laimonas will explain technically how it goes, but I will ask you, following what we learned from Sandra this morning, that you literally imagine yourself standing there on the line. So with your full body. So not just moving post-its with your mouse on the screen, but when you move the post-it, you imagine standing there at that place. And also feeling how it is to be in that place. Yeah. So if you're on the mirror board, we can open it. Laimonas, you can explain also how this works. I see lots of people already there.
Okay, I'll just share the screen perhaps, and we'll go a little bit through the kind of technicalities. So what we'll ask you to do is, when Darko will say the statement, and then basically we ask you to pick up a post-it note, and you have already some stacks, and write down your name. You can, so when you take it, you drag it, and then you just double click on it. And when you click there, you write your name. And imagine like a physical exercise that you would move in space based on the statement, whether you agree or disagree. So depending on the statement, you just can move the post-it by, if you're using mouse, you just click on the post-it and you move it. Then also, if you want to move the view, so you want to move your mirror board like down on your screen, the easiest way is to switch off this navigation button, so you should be able to see the kind of hand, when you move your mouse, or a trackpad. So then you just click on it and drag down, and there you will see other statements once we open them. If we run out of sticky notes, you see them on the left and on the right. You can also add a sticky note by clicking on the left side menu. It says sticky note, and there you can choose extra notes, and you can also shift a different, like rectangular shape, for example.
Thank you.
And then I can see like, oh, a big post appeared. So just click on it and then use the corner dots, and you can make them smaller and move it around.
Okay. So technically you have to be in the mirror board, and if it's clear how to move your post-its, I ask you to, some people are already moving. So the first statement is there, and the first statement is, in order to innovate, it is more important to question the status quo than to develop new things. And you sense first how this statement resonates in you. And then you find your place on the line from I agree to I disagree. So you can be closer to I agree, you can be closer to disagree, you can be somewhere in the middle, but trying to find your place on the line.
And if by any chance you don't have the possibility to reach Miro, maybe add your comments to the chat.
Okay, lots of people are still moving. So in order to innovate, it is more important to question the status quo than to develop new things. And as I said before, you're not just moving your post-its, but feel how it feels in that place. Okay. Mhm. Okay, good. I think, Lamaros, we can open the second statement. Again, the question is, to what extent do you agree, to what extent do you disagree? And the statement is, only when there is no hope, the innovation starts. Only when there is no hope, the innovation starts.
And you don't need to add new note, basically move your sticky note with your name down to that statement.
Mhm. Yes, thank you. And just feel how it feels to be on that place, on the line, in relation to this statement. Mhm. Only when there is no hope, the innovation starts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why you agree? Why you disagree? Mhm. Hmm. Okay. Thank you. We can move to the third statement, which is, when there is too much time, there is no innovation. When there is too much time, there is no innovation. And feel how it feels to be either on disagree or on agree side. How many people are there around you? Mhm. Okay. The statement number 4. Statement number 4 is, even without courage, you can be an innovator. Even without courage, you can be an innovator. See how this resonates with you. And where do you stand? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why you agree? Why you disagree? Feel how it feels in that place. What you can see from that place, what you cannot see from that place. Mhm. What made you think the way you think? What led you to choose this place? And the fifth statement, the last one, is you can only innovate if you have resources to do so. You can only innovate if you have resources to do so. How much do you agree? How much do you disagree? What are your reasons for your position? Mm-hmm. Thank you. We can come back to the main room. It was exciting to see the movements there. Like, we have few questions, a few moments, minutes. If you look at these five and your journey through these five statements, what was your immediate insight? What was your immediate discovery? We can take up to 3 persons maybe to share. How was your journey? What was your immediate insight from this journey to 5 statements? You can raise your hand, or physical or digital. Yes, Zrink.
Good morning, everyone. Overall, I was actually very much on the brink when it comes to courage and what does it mean to have a courage in that sense. And a lot of people are either pushed by their frustration or their anger overall, which actually kind of turns into a motivation rather than courage sometimes. So it really depends, what do they have on their disposal to make something work, rather than wait for some kind of perfect opportunities or conditions or resources overall. So I think that courage is not necessarily one thing that they should have, but they should have critical thinking. They should have an idea what they want to do, some kind of vision, some kind of purpose of their own, and then make that or turn it into a courage or motivation and so on. So having the resources or having some kind of perfect conditions is not something that's necessary in that sense, especially when we think about all the success stories where the people started in their garages or basements with the little that they have, and they just made it work. And this is also the first stepping stone, in my opinion, to be an innovator. Take what you have, make it work to actually make the change overall.
Thank you, Zink. Sylvia.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everyone. It was like question after question, I found myself to be choosing like not very extremes, but I was always like playing very safe. And it made me think that maybe I'm not, I want to play it more safe than be an innovator. And then I started to look who were the people, were people like me. I was trying to see whether there were other people having this mindset, let's say, but I saw that there were different names. And then it made me think again in time, maybe a few years back, I was much more going toward the extremes for every question. So I have some questions for myself that this exercise maybe helped me see myself, where do I stand in the field of innovation, especially in my field of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Lolo.
Yes, it's curious because I was reading the questions and seeing as we were going to is one answer or the other. And I was wondering, does innovation mean being like a successful innovator? You know, like, does innovation mean, oh, you have to be an Elon Musk or, you know, Marconi who made the radio, you know, to be known? Because I think of people in my country, for example, Venezuela, we lack a lot of things, and people are very creative into innovative ideas to solve problems. And this is things that you could easily sell on Amazon or whatever if you would, I don't know, consider it. We don't. We just do it. But this is an innovation, right? It's not necessarily, I mean, you don't need the courage to innovate. You just had the creative thinking. You had a problem. You solve a problem in a creative way. You innovated. So I was kind of thinking, like, what is it really? What does it mean to innovate? Does it really mean, do we have to be Elon Musk, or do we have to question the status quo, or do we like want to solve a problem? And there was a question that made me think of, I don't know why I thought of this idea of whenever there is chaos, there is opportunity. You know, whenever there is a problem, there is a solution. Because sometimes the problem is, do we need resources to innovate? Do we need money, or do we need, I don't know, wherever there is a problem, you can innovate. And I think that maybe innovation, it could also be a way of thinking. You can innovate in a different way, not necessarily into mechanicals or something like that. I don't know. Thank you.
Thanks, Lolo. Maybe you don't have to be famous to be an innovator. You know, it's. Well, let's see what the research has to say. We encourage you to keep this self-discovery in next hour and a half. Still, let's for maybe another angle. Let's see what the research says on this. So, Anita, maybe you have some insights from that side.
Yes, well, I don't have them, but somebody has them. So actually, the European Academy of Youth Work has done a research. We've talked about it in previous webinars, looking into innovation in youth work. How is it happening? How does it take place? And there's a few aspects of that research that relate to the individual aspects of innovation. And so today we have with us Federica De Micheli that can present us a little bit more about that specific aspect of the research that was conducted. Federica, welcome.
Thank you very much, Anita. Yes, I'm going to share my screen and hope that everything goes well, because innovation and technology doesn't reach so much my house, so my internet connection is always very poor. This we already learned together. I will just give some games, as Anita said, because the idea of today is just to provide some food for thought from the research that will be published soon. So this is also a good news. What we looked to, of course, to our research was innovation in youth work, and we developed some conclusion. But here we want to just to give you some glimpse from a perspective angle. We didn't investigate specifically the competencies. I think this could be a further development of the research, but we went through this factor that support innovation in youth work, and we identified these three levels: innovator-driven, cultural-driven, and context-driven. And I think this these factors and levels are quite related with the question that Darko asked to you, and how you also now, Lolo, would also try to find position, no? How to look through innovation, how we can develop innovation or not develop innovation. One of the most important factors was these innovator-driven factors that concern youth workers and not only youth workers as individual drivers of process of innovation, because in these innovator-driven factors, sometimes there are also young people that are part of this. And what I put in orange is what we find super interesting, that, for example, you had there the idea of, sorry, I just moved too much, innovation as a mindset. And that is something that you also mentioning, or as a set of innovation skills and competencies, adequate expertise and motivation for innovation. This is what we define as innovation-driven factors. But this was not enough, no? As we want to see the complexity of these factors, because there was another level that was this cultural level. So cultural driven factors that are the ones that have to do with the organizational culture of youth work. And this we discussed us a lot in the previous webinars, in which we think that it's important to have this individual factor, but also how this organization could support innovation, and also they can support in developing competencies of youth workers working there, and providing, and this that we divide as experimentation and piloting ideas are welcome. So I think that some of you said it's not just to do things, but also take a risk. There was this question if we have to be brave, you have to be, how we taking a risk. And I think this is quite an ambiguous approach. So what does it mean to take risk? I can take risk if somebody is supporting us. Yeah, I take a risk if I must have a competence to dealing with, for example, ambiguities. There are many things that we can also have a look around this in terms of our personal development as a youth workers, how to look the realities, how, no, is this the taking a risk only if I have no hope, and so I needed to really to jump in that cold water, or is it my approach to look to the reality? No, that's we're also mentioning now. And then there is another important factor, that is this context-driven factors, that are those that are shaped by the social process and activities of stakeholders out the youth field, because we can look to innovate about our competencies inside for us as a professional in our organization, but then we are not living in a bubble. We are living within a society. So it's also how we deal with these social changes, technology development, difficult condition, and so on. No? We discussed it a lot if COVID was pushing innovation, or was in a way oblige us to innovate in a certain way that maybe was not the way that we would, for example, just to put some critical thinking there. And this is also related also about our ways as a youth work that we look to the context. Context is not the same for where we look to, not only because we are living to the different realities, but it's also our competencies and regard to look our context there. So just few feedback that we had from the survey, for example. If you look to the survey result, the comparison between individual, organization, and the contextual factor in the survey show that individual level factors are assessed as slightly more important comparison to the other. That was quite interesting, no? So if we look to then the survey when it will be published, you can have a look to all the tables, also to the search. But what for us was interesting, and I wanted to report to you, is this kind of individual factor are still seen as the most important one, of course, put in relation to the others. And then innovation in youth work is innovator driven, with youth worker young people having the greatest role in initiative in the process of innovation. This is something that during the survey, but also during the focus group, has been raised up a lot. So the fact that when I look to the innovation, youth work is innovator driven, and so youth work and young people has a great role there. And when we speak about the role of young people, is because in many interviews, for example, youth workers said that coming from the needs of young people or the requests of the young people, then has been seen the need to fill a gap, for example. But then to me is that me as a youth worker I need to be to look to this in a way and to be able to read this. So mindset and attitudes are the more important than knowledge and skills when it comes to competencies of youth work. So open-minded, being prepared to the risk, and so on. This, I think, is something that we ended up as a conclusion of this having a look of innovator factors for us. And just to close with this, the condition that support innovation youth work with IDES great, just to be curious, but the factor that has been, the one that has been have a average grade higher was this youth work as innovator mindset, having an open mind and free spirit, being flexible, practicing divergent thinking. And this, of course, is an individual factor that has been the one that has been highest rate. But then if I had to see the organizational one, that is the lowest one, is that organization provide frame and space and adequate on time for creativity and innovation. That to me are really, really strictly linked. So I can have this competence, if I have free spirit, but then I need an organization that valorize myself and allow myself to be free spirit in a way. So this is a little bit what I wanted to share in very short time. I hope that I was being short enough. But also to say that all these findings and more, let's say, information will be soon available on the published version of the research, and also on a couple of tools that we developed, like podcasts and short videos. So more to come.
Thank you, Federica. Thank you so much. This is really interesting information because so far we didn't have a lot of research on how innovation is playing in our field. And so it's good to have some data on this. So thank you so much. And I wanted to continue this with a small input about these innovator competences, because afterwards we're going to ask you for a bit of group discussion in small groups about yourself and how you see yourself as an innovator. So I'll just share my screen shortly, briefly. And so just to clarify that we are here having a webinar about the competences for innovation, but obviously I really don't want to put all the responsibility of innovation into youth workers. We know that conditions are important, and we know that organizational culture makes a huge difference on our capacity to innovate or not, right? By the way, allow me the sales pitch. We will have the next webinar on that. I think it's on the 10th of March, if I'm not mistaken. That will be the topic of that webinar. It's organizational culture in regards to innovation. How can we support our organizations to be more innovation friendly, let's say. But now let's keep the focus on ourselves. And I like to show this. Nowadays, I think all PowerPoints kind of start with some kind of what are the most important skills asked for the next years. But the funny thing is that the two last reports for the future of jobs by the World Economic Forum, they both had on the first place analytical thinking and innovation. And if you see in third place, there's also complex problem solving, which is linked with innovation, critical thinking, which is linked with innovation, creativity, which is also linked. So it's kind of a really important area. And I'm really happy that they didn't just say innovation, because as we know, sometimes innovation can be a bit of a buzzword. No, it can be a bit of a fad. It's like everybody's talking about it and it's fancy. But also we have to be aware that innovating is not just changing everything and making everything new. You need analytical thinking to assess where do we need to adapt and where do we have already good solutions that we need to use, if nothing else for the sake of sustainability, right? So I'm very happy that they didn't just put innovation, but it was a bit more thought through, and it's about kind of assessing where innovation is needed. Now, we started this webinar with a question to all of you. Who was an innovator that came to your mind? And what was the main characteristic of an innovative person? Now, I've done this question to a lot of groups, and it's interesting that in the majority of them, there's kind of two traits that come more often. And here was the same if you look at the chat. One is about creativity, being creative, thinking out of the box, being disruptive. And the other one is about action, leading that idea forward, pushing it forward, taking it till the end. A little bit like being the inventor, for those of my age, that was kind of the archetype we had of the innovative person when I was growing up. It was the inventor, right? Like the crazy scientist or the person that was always making crazy machines. That's what kind of the reference I had as a child. I think nowadays kids have like more entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship was not available in my time, but now it's kind of, we think of Elon Musk and we think of big business people, but there's this kind of two aspects combined: creativity, imagination, and then action, which is fair enough because I think we do need those characteristics. The problem with this, I find, is that it relates to a preconception that in order to be innovative, you need to be the creative type. And you need to be the kind of extroverted, taking a lot of initiative, driven, passionate type as well, that really believes in that idea. And we are not like that, most of us. Most of humans are not that person. Otherwise, the wheel would have been invented much earlier. We are not, we don't have those characteristics, all of us. And I think that when we put innovation and the image of an innovator into that picture, like with that image of the self-driven, ultra-motivated, ultra-passionate, creative person, then it's really hard to reach it. And interestingly enough, other research and studies, what they show is that to innovate, most of the times, majority of the times, it takes a team, not a person, a team. And it takes a lot of different competences, not just creativity. Actually, I think we can recognize that because we have many ideas that we don't turn into innovations. No, creativity is this kind of the art of having the ideas, thinking the ideas, but innovation is the art of doing them. And we know that we don't act on all our ideas, even when they're good, right? We all had like the $1 million business idea that we've never went through with. I think we can all recognize that. So what would be other competences that are important to have in a team that is innovating? And I've compiled a few of them here. They are from different studies. They're from different researchers, but they kind of, they converge to a series of them. Some of them are more exhaustive with a long lists. I tried to choose a few of the ones I think fit very well for our field here in youth work. Well, the first one is perception of opportunities. Well, this is not by a specific order, by the way, but the first one listed here is perception of opportunities. So maybe you're not the person who has the greatest ideas, but you're the person who can see where the needs are, or where there's a new desire by young people, or maybe you are the person who hears young people and can really track down where their interests are right now. So this perception of seeing opportunities is a great asset to have in a team of people who want to support innovation. Obviously, collaboration is very important because, like I said, innovation normally requires complexity. So nowadays, it's very hard to, just as a youth worker, to come up with something completely new. You will probably, if you're going to do something technological, you will need digital support. If you're going to do something with a community, you might need, I don't know, anthropologist or an architect. So we need to be able to collaborate with others and all those teamwork capacities that we know are crucial in our field. Initiative and leadership, which I would connect with communication and persuasion, because a lot of the innovation process is not having the idea. So having the idea is just the kind of tiniest process in the whole thing, because afterwards, the idea is imperfect, unfinished, and we are unsure if it's going to work or not, because we need to test. And to keep a team and different stakeholders believing in that idea, even when it's imperfect and unproven, that takes skill. It takes a lot of skill, a lot of capacity to lead and to communicate to others, to explain that there might be something here, we should look into it. not just our team in our organization, but other stakeholders at local, national, international level. And again, all these don't have to be the same person doing all these different things. The other one, obviously, it's complex problem solving. I think this goes a little bit without saying, but also knowledge of innovation strategies. I wanted to focus just a little bit on this one because we know that a competence is built of skills and attitudes and knowledge turned into behavior. And I think it's important that we know this, that there are innovation strategies, processes, methodologies that help us to innovate, and they've been invented, they're out there. So we don't have to invent the wheel on how do I manage innovation processes. They are there. For example, design thinking is one of them, maybe one of the most known ones in our field, but there are others. So you can educate yourself about what is the best way to push an innovation forward and learn about it and share it with your teams. That's a crucial knowledge to have. And now more to the end. So cognitive flexibility, which means the capacity to tolerate ambiguity, uncertainty, to deal with being unsure about things and still working towards them. So this cognitive flexibility of holding different concepts at the same time and holding questions for longer, it's linked with reflection, it's linked with adaptability, and it's mentioned in all of the competence frameworks we now use at European level. All of them, the trainers one, the youth workers one, the life comp, Entracomp, you name it, it's always mentioned. And finally, people, process, and product management, which is management at large. This combined with ethics, I think, is very important. Again, you might not be the person who has the idea, you might not be the extrovert who's going to communicate it, but maybe you're the person who's going to plan it, who's going to pin it down and oversee the process of iteration, of improving, of testing. And if you have these skills, you are crucial in a team that wants to innovate. As well as if you have this very strong sense of ethics and responsibility, because you're going to be looking at the details that might be questioning our values and seeing if it's going on the right way. So I'm just putting this out here because the next exercise is about exactly this. It's about how are you as an innovator? I like this proverb a lot, and I also think that ancient Chinese proverbs always look great on presentations. So this one says, when the wind of change blows, some people build walls and others build windmills. I also tend to disagree with most Chinese proverbs, and I do think that this one could be a bit improved. I would say that when the winds of change blow, all of us sometimes build walls and all of us sometimes build windmills. It depends on a lot of aspects, and it depends on our capacities as well. This presentation will be shared with you, and there's a few references and places where you can go a bit deeper on this. But right now, I wanted to invite you for the exercise. And it's quite, I would say, simple, but hopefully insightful. So we're going to invite you to go into small groups. Now, I know that not everybody here is able to speak, so there might be some people in your group that are silent. If everyone in your group is silent and you're talking alone, please come back to the room. We'll put you in another group. You will have around 15 minutes. And the invitation is for you to think of two aspects of yourself. One is, what are your strengths when it comes to supporting innovation? So from all these things that we were talking about, what are the things that you have as strengths already that you can use when supporting innovation processes? And the second aspect, which I hope you are equally enthusiastic to share, is finishing this sentence. I'm an obstacle to innovation when and you know yourself better than anyone. So what do you do sometimes that might actually be an obstacle, a wall instead of a windmill, to processes of innovation? Okay, so we invite you to do these two things. There's going to be a Miro link already is there. It's the same Miro link as before. And Limonos has put there a frame with a gingerbread, and he's sharing it right now. Look at that. That is you. That is all of us. This is the image of all of us. And so we invite you to put on the left side, I'm an obstacle to innovation when, and you can take a Post-it, place it on that side of the little man, and write down, what do you do? You don't have to put your name, okay? You don't have to identify yourself, but what do you do that sometimes is an obstacle to innovation? And on the other side, using the green Post-its, you can write what are strengths that you have that you can help support innovation, okay? Now, you don't have to come to an agreement as a group on what to write. You write your individual ones while you talk about it and you hear other people, and maybe other people will inspire you and remind you of other strengths you might have or other areas you might want to work on, right? So this is the invitation. You're going to do it in small groups. There's 15 minutes. And because this is kind of a self-facilitated moment, please make sure that everyone has the time to share, that it is safe to share, and enjoy. Have fun. See you in 15 minutes. Limonous.
And actually, we get a lot of interesting Post-its, and it was very fruitful, apparently, from the outside. When we look the number of Post-its and the comments coming in on the gingerbread, the question for you would be, what was more useful for you personally, to look at this when you're an obstacle or to look at your strengths? So what was more useful for you? And perhaps why? You can raise your hand or digital hand. Yes, Fergal.
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts, and it's more a reflection, my own thoughts actually, so it doesn't represent the views of the group, just that I always find this in conversation interesting about innovation, because I spend time trying to work out how to use Miro and trying to figure out a gingerbread man, and I didn't do it because I just don't have the energy for it. And I think this, for me, is one of the problems, that we create so many innovations and tools to use that it takes away from the focus, the chance to have a conversation about the subject matter, and to go into a group for 15 minutes to try and have a realistic conversation about these things and have to ask us to put the stuff on Miro in 15 minutes, we lose the benefit of the people that we're engaged with. So for me, it's a personal comment. It's a reflection on how the process is for me. And I mean, Miro itself, some people know my views on innovation and creativity. I mean, I embrace them and I welcome, but I also think it's one of those things, equally, it drives us insane, because we spend so much time trying to create things and innovate and have purpose, and to just create for the sake of creating, that we lose the sight of actually the natural creativity, the juices that flow with us. So when I saw Miro this morning and all these things running around the screen, just looked like a bunch of ants to me, actually, and takes away, and I lose focus. So that idea of 15 minutes to try and engage with people whilst trying to do something else actually just completely stifles my innovation, and my actually takes away from my energy to want to actually have meaningful conversations with other people that I don't know about the very subject. So yeah, my thought. So
thank you. Meaningful conversations, very important, not just tools. Rink.
Yeah, something that kind of comes and goes, at least in my case, is having a reflection, which is usually very much subjective, and then asking for feedback, which should be constructive and objective. To find a middle ground is something that usually, at least for me, leaves the space to maybe have a different perspective in a constructive way, to maybe get an information on something that I maybe did not notice, or maybe translate it for other people in a different way, whether it created a conflict or a harmony in either of the extremes, is something that actually ends up being the most constructive way to either move forward or to find a new way, because the subjective is very much one side, but then having feedback from different people, from different experiences in different working environment or different relations, and what they see and how this translates to other people, if we talk about working in a team or working with others, is something that a lot of time comes in very handy when it comes to both individual reflection, but also moving on in an innovation with a team when you work with other people.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? What was more useful, to look at strengths or to look at when you are being an obstacle in a process like this? And why is that so? Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say that yes, easier for me to say what is the weakness, but in fact I feel more energy when I speak about my strengths, because they are a lot. Weaknesses are less. And when I think about my strengths, I think, wow, I can do a lot, a lot.
Thank you. So it's important also to stress your own strengths. It's, in a sense, it feels more empowering as well, not to only look at the weaknesses side. Thank you. If you would take one thing from this short gingerbread exercise, that you would take one insight that you would take forward back in your working context, back in your organization, back in your youth work, what that would be? What would be one thing to take forward?
We should say or to write?
You can say. Yes.
Humor.
Humor. Okay.
Yeah.
I would like to take humor further. Thank you. What else? One insight, one idea, something to grow more. Or grow less. What would you take further?
I would say more self-awareness to identify opportunities for innovation.
Thank you. Afonso? Anybody else?
I think in my position, I would try to strengthen the team.
I want to, sorry.
Can I? Yes, go.
I wanted to follow on what Reza was saying, to focus on the team, and somehow maybe it's me. I wonder if it's shared, but when I would think of something like this in the team level, then I think I tend to more take it to this organizational, or what was Federica describing as organizational culture, and so, which is of course important. But then I want to connect it to what Anita was then referring to. So the competences as a team then, and it doesn't come so, how to say, so naturally to me. So I need to make a little bit of effort there. So this was good food for thought, to think about our organization or any organization I'm in from this point of view.
Thank you, Adam. One more.
Darko, while the group, maybe somebody else is preparing to share, I just wanted to highlight some of the sharings that are happening here also on the chat. Ines is making an interesting reflection about how hard it is to innovate when it goes against tradition or very strict social constructions, and how much of a challenge that can be. Carson mentioned the curiosity and interest in other perspectives. This kind of, be willing to listen and to hear to other people's perspectives as well, and have curiosity about them. Gabi is saying how much feeling overwhelmed can stop us from innovating when we feel like that there's no, it requires a bit of time. It requires a bit of availability, let's say mental availability as well, I guess. And Adil is saying that she will inspire her team to dare to go beyond borders, beyond what we perceive as normal, and try to reach innovative approaches. and also there's now, well, there's more coming now. So I invite everybody to keep reading them. I won't keep reading it, but there was a few already collected there I wanted to share.
Yes, thanks. For me personally, I was thinking a lot about this risk-taking that comes very often in the topic of innovation, taking risk, and then it came today also several times. And if I remember well, I think Federica was talking about it in the context of cultural factors. It was very interesting. And for me, a little bit, I think maybe became more clear today that risk-taking is somehow connected to the risking your belonging, that you maybe risk not to belong anymore. But sense of belonging in this field is also very strong, and that's why we have this academy. One of the cornerstones of the academy in physical events, also in these webinars, have been based on practice and what people actually tried out. So as one of the habits also in the webinars, the idea is also to present bits and pieces, maybe in a very condensed way, some of the practices that will be presented in the physical event. So coming back to Anita to introduce our guest actually and the practice contributor in the webinar 3.
Yes, so as Dark was saying, in many of the webinars, we want to bring one of the practices from the field and their experience in how they've led an innovative initiative. Again, innovative in their context. Sometimes things have been done in other places, so we all have seen different possibilities, but it's more also to look at the process and how is it going. And today we also have a practice here to share with all of you. It's the Isafe Project, which is a project that promotes inclusion, the human rights, and the participation of young refugees and migrants. And we're going to have a short presentation about this project and then time for Q&A. So if you have questions popping up in your head during the presentation, please write them in the chat, and then we'll pick them up during the Q&A. And to present us this project, we have two persons today with us, two invites. One is Seamus. Seamus works with the Gaiety School of Acting in Ireland, and he's a researcher, academic tutor, and the creative lead in several Erasmus Plus projects, including the Isafe. He's also a drama therapist, a coach, and he's an enthusiastic baker. So Seamus, first question, the most important one, what is your favorite thing to bake?
Lemon drizzle cake.
All right, one for me, please, if you don't mind.
No problem. Just while I'm chatting, Anita, if you don't mind my introduction, would you mind giving me the host rights so I can share my PowerPoint?
It's done.
Oh, it's done. Very efficient. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So hello, good morning, everybody, and good morning from Dublin, Ireland here. My name is Seamus Quinn. As Anita has introduced me, I am an academic tutor, researcher, and creative lead on several Erasmus Plus projects in the Gaiety School of Acting in Dublin. And what I'm here to do and represent, and very proudly represent, I do with great pride, is the Isafe project that we are in the process of still going through. We're kind of in our third of the way through it. So we have another 2 years to go with this project. So what I will be telling you about is giving you an overview of the project so you have an understanding of the reasons behind it, the rationale behind it, the outputs that we are doing, and the resources that we are creating, and where we are at this very moment, and the policies that it underpins and the recommendations from the EPII. Basically, and also, which is really, really important as well, I will be referencing competencies, which I've seen that you've had a very in-depth discussion about, and the responsibilities with that throughout, in a conversational style. And all I will do is give you the practice that I've seen, that I've practiced myself, and that I've shared with others in my own team and trans-European teams as well. So also, and this is the crucial part, is that just I want you to remember that young migrants and refugees and advocates in the steering committee are the bedrock and the filter for everything that we have done with the Isafe project. It is absolutely paramount. They are our sixth partner, literally. So I'm now going to go ahead and do PowerPoint presentation, which will be less than 15 minutes, fingers crossed. Unfortunately, there will be no lemon-drizzle cake at the end of it, but there will be hopes of it. Also, you will be meeting in the conversation with Anita at the end is Rama Kaluga, who is a member of our Irish steering committee and who will also be presenting in Slovenia in May, which is also a first and an innovative part of our program. So with no further ado, and with the help of technology, I will be able to show you our presentation. Yes, I can. This is wonderful. Here we go. So the presentation is inclusive self-advocacy, education and empowerment based on young refugees and asylum seekers. That is the Isafe project. So I will give you, this is basically underpinning of it from the guidelines of the European Commission and the Council of Europe in 2019. So the Isafe project concept promotes the development of synergies between different sectors, supporting the inclusion, human rights and participation of young refugees and migrants. And when we use the word synergies, that is competencies, that is talent, that is innovation, that is everything that we've been talking about, and I think that you've been talking about. And as my life as a leadership coach and an executive coach, I understand the essence of competencies and the difficulties. And as Fergal brought up earlier on, and Zinka, I think the lady's name was, the conversations, not just the tools. They are so important. And we're talking about a strengths and a stresses factor, not a strengths and a weaknesses. Stresses, not weaknesses. Stresses are things we can get over. Weaknesses can overwhelm us sometimes. So with that, this is the bedrock of the Isafe project. So who are our partners? So here they are. So we have on top, we have IGAM. And IGAM are the Research Center on Asylum and Migration in Ankara in Turkey. Now, when it comes to competencies, I would divide them into professional competencies and personal competencies. So on a professional level, IGAM would have the competency, the competency of basically been the research evaluation and the theory-based policy partner. So that would be their professional competencies. I can admit my partner here in crime today is coming in. It's great to have control. Welcome, Rama, and you'll meet Rama shortly. So then after that we have Wilhelm Centrum, Volunteering Center promoting civic engagement in Augsburg in Germany. Now, of course, once again, they are volunteer-based and representing the volunteer sector. So they in themselves, their competency, their professional competency is based on the volunteer sector. So then we move on to the Greek Forum of Refugees, and migrant-led NGO in Athens, in Greece. And they basically, once again, are very innovative, and they are the bedrock of basically what Isafe is all about self-advocacy and youth-led programs and networks. Then we've Scoop Foundation Ireland, who basically, they are volunteering outside of Europe. Beyond Europe is where Europe meets the global. They are working in Syria and Northern Iraq. And they also have a very, very digital learning profile when it comes to refugee camps and everything like that. So that is their competency on a professional level. Then comes in my own organization, which is the Gaiety School of Acting here in Dublin. And basically we are the creative element. We are the people, we're the ones who bring in the innovative, using drama techniques and ways of educating and upskilling young people in regards to human rights, which are backed by also all these human rights activists and professionals that are in these other organizations. And we create workshops and other things actually that will highlight self-advocacy on human rights scale with young people, migrants, refugees, and across the board. So, as I said, we have a sixth partner, and the sixth partner, I will show you now, is member of this group here. Right, this is our team. This is one of our partnership meetings, which was held on Zoom, which is a plus and a minus. We'll talk about them down the line as well, about the difficulties we faced going online, which I'm sure you as an organization, no matter what part of Europe you're coming from, will have the same problems. But this is our team. We have 48 members of our steering committee, which are the young people all across from Turkey, from Greece, from Germany, and from Ireland. And the wonderful thing about Zoom is that we were able to actually make sure that everybody, even from rural parts of any country in Europe, were able to join us in our meetings. They joined us physically in Greece, Mattia and Morty, who I'll talk about later on as well, and also Rama and others from the steering committees of different countries joined us online as well. This is some of them, and there are, as I said, 48 of them, and they are all wonderful individuals. So this is the team, smiling, smiling, smiling. So let's get on to what Isafe is about. Okay. So from theory to practice, and that's what we're talking about, and the difficulty of moving from theory to practice is really always the job and the difficulty of any project. So, so under the UN Refugee Agency, according to the UN Refugee Agency, there is fundamental need for authentic voices of refugees, wherein refugees campaign for themselves. The underpinning of Isafe, that's exactly that line there. One of the recommendations of the UN is to develop youth communities of practice for the main self-advocacy priorities of for Europe. And the Council of Europe underpinned that with develop their knowledge, skills, and competencies to play a full part in civil society. Now, when Isafe proposal was written, this was the bedrock of exactly what was been said and what was been written. We actually took the recommendations and we created Isafe based on the recommendations. So in itself, Isafe is innovative by following basically the recommendations. So Isafe is a manifested expression, and the word that you used earlier on, experiment, of those recommendations. It is the first one. So we are learning as we go along about how this manifestation and recommendations can manifest into something that is productive and youth-led. And so innovative youth-led approach, how wonderful was that? The next slide. So Isafe uses the creative mediums of drama, which the Gaeta School of Acting are the competency lead on that, applied drama and performing arts, and combines them with the digital literacy, volunteering, and human rights-based approaches to promote human rights, equality, civil society, and to reinforce the rule of law, all of which are the key values underpinning the EU values. So here we go again. So Isafe Project, this is exactly, so you'll get a very vast, hopefully, understanding of where we're at and what we do, and also hopefully we'll be able to inform the questions that you may ask Anita, myself, and Rama at the end of this presentation, which will be more less tools orientated and more conversation orientated. So first of all, first reason behind it all is to allow for real youth-led cooperation between young refugees and professionals working in the youth fields. So through the steering committees, they can connect with each other, they start making clusters of networks and lead each other and lead actually the NGOs. This is also about supporting NGOs that have migrant-led policies and projects. And to empower young people, refugees, to protect themselves by knowing about their human rights. So it's about self-empowerment, it's about education, and it's about educating the young people to educate other young people through global effectiveness, which is one of the outputs that you will see shortly. 3, to develop the capacities and skills of migrants to conduct self-advocacy in relation to the policies and practices that concern them. So it's not just that we are actually forcing putting our views, our recommendations on them, they're actually formulating their own thoughts around it, and we're allowing them to lead that process too, because the future is based on their thoughts and their willingness to move forward, and we just facilitate that. Then to design the resources for use, not only by young people, but also service providers, NGOs, and organizations working in the youth field and migrant-led, youth-led advocacy services. So these are very applicable universal workshops, universal interpretations that any NGO internationally or youth care workers or wherever around the world can actually access and apply on a very simple, straightforward way. Then finally, to develop migrant-led advocacy online platforms, which is one of the outputs, for networking, peer-to-peer learning, online modules in human rights and self-advocacy training, resources for young workers, youth workers. Now, it seems like a big task, and it is a big task. And every proposal that ever comes out with always has got a huge amount of work ahead of it. It is a dream factor. It is a dream of what we want to manifest on the recommendations. But as a group, we have to share our competencies, our professionalism, our knowledge to make that dream a reality. Now, our original coordinator is a lady who now who has exalted herself into Lergus, the national agency in Ireland. And Anna Kajic, basically, she was the coordinator. And for me, with all the Erasmus projects, I have to say, I called her the dreamer. And myself and my co-partner in the Gated School of Acting, Caroline Coffey, we call ourselves the dreamologists. And that's exactly what we are. We are making dreams manifest through recommendations, through policy, through talent, through shared learning, and arm in arm with the youth that we are actually representing. So so basically this is from policy to practice, and I want to make sure I keep within the time frame that we can have the conversation. So you can see that what this does, it contributes to perspectives and contemporary debates. We're opening up new avenues of conversation, new avenues of travel, nearly, new avenues of thought, new avenues of what the future will look like. And this is migrant and refugee led. So this, I'm sure, will be passed on to you, this presentation. So I'm not going to waste any more time in reading this because you need to move on. And so this is about digital tools and digital literacy and everything as well. So in that, so just as well, before we get on to it, I just want to, and just about the steering committee as well, because we will come back to it again. So the sixth partner, as I said, are our steering committee members, and there's 48 of them, right? So they're trying to become a network themselves. They're migrant-led youth networks, gaining digital literacy, promoting human rights advocacy and activation, peer-to-peer support, supporting NGOs that are migrant-led, and creating sustainable long-term program for youth-led programs. So that's basically where we're at. So I'm going to give you the outputs now. So you'll get a sense of exactly what we're doing and what the resources will be and are being created and what will be the end result of our project. So firstly, the Isafe stories reflecting on human rights. So these are 8 videos of self-representation tools for young migrants. And Rama hopefully will be able to speak about them a little bit later on too, if she's so wishes or if she's asked a question on it. So interviews of young asylum seekers, refugees, led by partners and reviewed by the steering committees themselves. So we have held interviews in all Turkey, Greece, Germany, Ireland. And then from these interviews, we have written monologues. Monologues are basically scripted pieces for actors to perform the story. So it's written by the creative team, which would be myself and Caroline Coffey, in the Gated School of Acting, from the interviews. And we use verbatim, which is word for word theatre, and documentary theatre is based on the facts. Techniques, and they were individually reviewed and sanctioned by our steering committee to say that they resonate with them, that they understand them, that it represents their journey as well. So then an individual journey becomes a universal story and a universal journey. So then these are currently in production at the moment, and they will be available on the platform and on the website, the Isafe website, in due course. And one thing about this, about the Isafe website as well, is that this is going to be an ongoing platform. This does not end after the Isafe Pro project has been funded. It has been part of probably the innovative part of Isafe as well, is that it was absolutely paramount in the proposal that actually the platform becomes live and is hosted after the project. Now, the Scoop Foundation in Ireland have taken that on board and will make sure that that platform is still live and still working years down the line. So that in itself is innovative as well. It's not just the duration of the project, it's the duration of the needs of the project extending from the project. Then the HEDGE program. So we call the HEDGE program, which is basically human rights, education, global effectiveness, basically. And I will be quick as can with this as well. HEDGE basically came from, let me tell you, in Ireland, during penal times, an occupation in Ireland, schools basically were not really allowed to actually teach young Irish children, basically. So what happens? These things called HEDGE schools arrived. And hedge schools basically could be a school, a teacher could teach in a field, could teach behind a rock, could teach on a road, could teach in some place where there was no restrictions, where the young people could learn. And this is why we call it hedge, because it's relevant to refugees, where education basically is in any point or any place in the geography where they find themselves. So what we're doing in the Gated School of Acting, we're and with the partnerships that we're creating a program that is for youth workers and practitioners working in the youth field to empower self-advocacy between the 17 to 25-year-old age group for refugees and asylum seekers. So they're divided into two, the Kickstarter pack and then the Startup pack. Then all partners will be trained up and rolled out the program with the steering committee and the youth workers. Then the Isafe Hedge Global Effective Masterclasses will actually then come after this to encourage global advocacy training tools for young refugees and asylum seekers. Now, what's very important about this, and we're nearly there, I've got 30 seconds left, I promise. And I know I'm talking fast too, my apologies. Now, the thing is that the masterclasses come after the Hedge program, all right? Now, the Hedge program can be done online and it can also be done in camps. It can be done wherever anybody decides that they want to do them. After those Kickstarter pack, where you start to get to know about your human rights, young people, and then you may graduate then onto the Startup pack, which actually is about bringing it more to a global understanding about how you get your story across to actually influence others. Then there's masterclasses. And these masterclasses will be recorded and put online as well, and they will be given by two migrant refugees from Afghanistan that actually are in the Greek, one of the migrants leading the Greek Forum NGO. Now they're Mattia and Morty, and they are going to deliver those masterclasses. So we have migrants who have been through it that are actually going to empower other migrants and young people through their own story, through their own activation. And that will be based on all the process that they've learned through the steering committee, the Hedge program, and then they're going to teach the advocacy. So this is the global effectiveness prospect of it all. Then the Isafe platform, then basically, as I said, there's output 2, all the outputs will merge onto the platform and be accessible through, globally and Europe as well. So currently, all this is in stage. This is all in process at this very, very moment, which is really, really, really exciting. And I hope that you're getting across the excitement that I feel for this project and the wonder of working with all the partners that I've worked with and the Gated School of Acting and everything else. And the thing is as well, when it comes to Zoom, don't underestimate the power of it. It can connect us. Where people that cannot be connected otherwise. We've had limitations with it. We've also had a wonderful opening in it too. And the thing is that as innovators, we can actually make the best out of any situation. And as I said, dream and be a dreamologist. And that is me complete.
Thank you, Seamus. Thank you for your sharing. People were complimenting your enthusiasm in the chat. And I want to go immediately just for asking 2 questions to Rama that arrived just a few minutes ago. I don't know if you can turn your mic on, if we can hear you. Rama, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Rama, I want to
I think I still have the lead. Where is Rama? Where are you, Rama? Shake your hands at me. Hello, Rama. I'm going to just pin you like the rest of us.
Can you guys hear me fine? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Rama, you are one of the young adults kind of in the steering committee for this project. And I wanted to ask you, what is new about this project for you? What is the novelty here for you?
First of all, thank you for this opportunity, Anita. So first of all, for me, Isafe as an idea is actually new, very new. I've been involved in I was involved in another project, migrant project. But what is quite unique and original about this, and what was actually something that attracted me to be involved in this, was the fact that it talks more about empowerment of young people. And also, it teaches us, or we are being taught, and we learn with our mentors like Seamus how important our voices are, and they should not be silenced. And as migrants, I think it's one factor that everyone can quite relate to, because once you are new in a country or in a foreign land, there are so many challenges, such as language barrier, depending on where you go or where you live. There's so many things that you face. And knowing that being involved in a project as a migrant, and eventually once we become advocates, is to teach those ones that, you know what, first of all, you're not alone. That's the first thing. The second thing is, most importantly, your voice matters. We want to hear your stories, because your stories are unique. Your stories make you who you are. It's part of you. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Despite your journey, it's part of who you are, and it has made you come where you are. And then the second thing is knowing that we can empower people to know their rights, because many of us as migrants, and me as an example, there's so many things that I've learned through mentoring with Seamus and other classes we've had. There were rights that I wasn't aware of. They were so basic and little that I wasn't aware of. So that uniqueness of Isafe makes it very different, you know, and knowing that my voice is so important, and then it shouldn't be silenced, because it can make changes that can impact the life of others. So I think it's a very important thing and unique thing that Isafe has. So that was the reason why I was mainly fond of. And then so far, it has been the message that's been passed on at every single session. Your voice matters. We want to hear you. There's nothing that is pre-prepared. You have to be honest. They want to hear us. They want to hear our views. They want to hear how we feel. They want to know what our experiences and what we're learning from it. And then, honestly, it's just an honor to be part of Isafe, because it's very, very, very empowering. It's empowering me as a young refugee. It's empowering me as a young adult in the Irish society. It's empowering me, most importantly, as a female. So for me, that's a really good thing.
Wow, thank you. That's a great testimony, and people are reacting here on the chat. If you turn it on, you can see that's very inspiring and a great testimony. Rama, I had one more question.
Go ahead.
We've been talking here today about how what are the skills that we need to be able to do something new, right? And you within the committee, which is a committee of young migrants, how does that go there? My question is, how is creativity flowing in that group? If you can kind of share what your view on it.
Well, I think everyone has an individual skills. I'm not personally so creative, but there have people in the group, and bear in mind that we started Isafe within the pandemic. So obviously the challenges of going on Zoom, you know, trying to share ideas. Some people are shy, and some people have language barrier, as I said earlier on. Some people might have ideas that might be difficult for them to express. So the creativity has been quite good in terms of where we were given the options. If you're not so good at explaining yourself verbally, you can draw, you can write, you can, I'm good at, I express more in writing. Right. And then I'm able to put in all my feelings in writing. And then some people, they draw, some people, they just come into the chat, we communicate as we are doing today, and then we share ideas, right? And the creativity has been really quite good and quite supportive by the mentors. And I remember when we started it and we needed to make a logo, for example, for Isafe, and we wanted something different, because most of the projects like this have kind of like similar Legos and stuff like that, logos and stuff like that. So it was challenging, as I said, because it was the pandemic, and then we couldn't see each other, and then, you know, we have to do everything through Zoom, which wasn't so bad. And but it wasn't so bad because, you know, people made the time, which was the commitment from the young people, including me, to log in and then share our ideas, share our views. And then see how we can come up with ideas and stuff like that. As I said, I'm very expressive. I'm not really so good with creativity. Seamus knows. I'm a bit little there. I'm trying. But Isafe has been quite good because, as I said, if you can't come up with ideas and stuff like that, you can write, you can draw, you can do what makes you feel more comfortable in your skin, which is so important. And then through that, you learn different skills as well. You know, like for example, as I was saying yesterday, I wasn't such a good listener, to be honest. I have to be frank. I would be listening, but my mind would be elsewhere, and I'd be like, yeah. But with the different sessions we've had with Isafe and the different stories, it allows you to pay more attention, because for you to be able to relate to someone else and understand them, you have to be listening. And it's not like listening one half of what they're saying, but really have your focus there and know what they're talking about, so you can feel it and know what they went through. And then when I started Isafe, as I said, I wasn't a great listener. And we started sharing different stories from different migrants and different on. And then as that went on, one day I was like, God, there was one guy that shared his stories. And then I was like, wow, I actually took my time to actually listen to him without being distracted. And then that started happening. Now, I'm a quite good listener. I listen. I'm not half away. Once I'm focused, I'm listening. I'm really there. So that's one skill that I've developed throughout so far, not even that long, throughout the process, you know. And as I said, the level of communication has improved because they are all there. We can contact them anytime. They are there to answer questions. They are there to help us. And the youth is also great, you know, in the meetings, all goes perfectly. Everything is flowing. We share ideas. We communicate so much. And it's just good. It just makes everything different.
This is
and
fantastic.
Most
Thank
importantly,
you.
It doesn't make you feel lonely at all, so which is good.
This is amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, I'm cutting you slightly bit, but we're running out of time. And there was mostly praise here in the chat, but there's one question that I would still like to voice to Seamus. We're going to have to be short on the answers. I'm sorry.
Do you say I talk too much, Anita? Is that what you're saying?
I know, because I'm a talker too. But here I have the role of the timekeeper. But the question is, how this drama therapy works? If you can kind of shortly let us know, how does this drama therapy works in relation of empowering migrants?
Yeah, sure. Now, I'll just be cautious on the word drama therapy. It's not actually therapy. Drama therapy has a different purpose. That's a one-to-one thing. That's for psychological development and stuff like that. Very different. So we use drama techniques, and there are, which actually, if anybody's ever heard of a gentleman called Augusto Boal, he created the Theatre of the Oppressed in Brazil, which was based on basically like bringing political points of view, community resistance, community stresses to the fore by using techniques, drama techniques, games, communication games, role playing, being an antagonist to protagonist in a situation, learning through that, learning perspectives. And that's the wonderful thing about drama and theatre, is that it allows you to play without the consequence. And that's where we learn. And that's how we use theatre and the theatre techniques to actually open people's minds and perspective up, but not feel the consequence of it, but get the knowledge of the experience of your side and the other. And that's what it's all about. I think hopefully that's succinct enough.
That was very succinct. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And remember this lady's name, Rama Kaluga. Remember her name. She's an amazing, amazing woman.
Thank you so much. Thanks to both of you presenting so in such an enthusiastic way and so such an inspiring way this project. Rama, I know that you're going to be with us in the event, in the physical event. So it's going to be great to meet you there. Can't wait for having more chats with you. Today we are very close to closing our webinar. I want to thank you so much for both of you for sharing your project and your experience, your testimony with us, but also to all of the people that joined us today. and that were sharing their reflections about yourselves, and we're also being an inspiration for all of us by being conscious and by bringing and valuing these topics in our field. And I think this is how our field moves forward. Darko, I leave you the floor for the last words, and also to Lymanus for the evaluation.
Yes, perhaps maybe we go again to the quick Mentimeter evaluation, like we do, like we did in previous 2 webinars. So Lymanus will launch it in a second. Maybe just a reminder for all of you who would like to join for the 4th webinar. It will be on the 10th of March, again starting at 9:30 with the embodiment part for half an hour, and then 10 to 12 for the main part of the webinar. I think Anita mentioned before, it will be more about cultures of innovation. So how to nurture the cultures of innovation within the organizations, or how to create conditions for innovations to happen. So that will be on 10th of March. Thank you all for being here today. Maybe just a quick evaluation in the Mentimeter. Lymanus will tell us how to go. The link is already in the chat.
Yeah, the link is there. Just either click directly to the link or use your mobile device, go to menti.com and enter the code 63559253 and leave your feedback to us.
For Seamus and Rama, we are looking forward to hear the results in the physical event. So probably we'll have more things developed by end of May. So we're looking forward to hear that.
And just also to add that we will send an email to all the participants here with the presentations from the webinar. So the materials will be shared. And if you have other questions, you can always reach either Sonia or Susanna. They've been emailing you as well. If you have more questions about the physical event or about the next webinar. The next one is on the 10th of March. Just put it in your agenda. And see you around. Thank you so much.
Will you share with us contacts of participants?
Not from the webinars, because we didn't ask permission for that beforehand. So you're going to have to kind of write in the chat and ask everyone really quickly, or for those maybe that you were talking to in your group. But no, we won't be able to do that for privacy reasons.
Yeah, what will be for sure, it will be one of the Mireya's posters. We're looking forward to hear and see the one new poster from the webinar 3. So we're just exciting ahead. So Mentimeter is open. Maybe Lymanus, you can see how this is going. Yeah, there were 4 questions like we've been following in the previous webinars as well.
Yeah, we have 30 people answered so far. So inviting everyone, just click on the link from the chat or simply use your mobile phone, enter menti.com, and you see the code on the very top. So Menti website will ask for the code and you just enter 63559253.
Thank you so much, everyone, and see you around.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice rest of the day.